Hello everybody, it's me, Kealan. Welcome back to my channel. I think I just mumbled that whole thing. I'm a bad mumbler. There are like times when I'm editing my videos where I'm like, oh my god, nobody's gonna understand what you're saying. But I'm here with the books that I ended up reading in July. And really, I am surprised at the amount that I was able to read this month, especially considering we had a bunch of like house stuff that we were taking care of. We actually have been battling a gas leak for the past couple weeks, and my husband had to dig a trench at the side of our house to like find this pipe, and like I had to remove a bunch of bushes, and it's just been like so much fucking yard work. Because then I was like, well, if I'm going to remove these bushes that I hate, I'm going to remove like all these other bushes that I hate and take care of some yard stuff, because I hate doing yard work. It's the worst. So that took up like, I don't know, like 4 days this week where I just didn't, I didn't read at all. So, or this month, I guess. Speaking of the things that I read this month, I ended up reading 10 books. There was one other book that I ended up DNFing about halfway through. 7 were horror, 2 were science fiction, 1 was dystopian, and 1 was historical fiction. Altogether, I read 2,767 pages, which is about 92 pages a day. The one that I didn't finish this month was called The Lesson by Cadwell, Turnbull. And this was a dystopian book, kind of. It was like about an alien invasion, and I was really interested in it because 1, alien invasion, and 2, it was set in the US Virgin Islands, and I've never read anything set there or with characters from there, so I was really interested in that. It's like not a very long book. I was actually listening to the audiobook, and I got halfway through, and there are these aliens that have settled in the US Virgin Islands, but they're able to look human, but they're also like kind of violent sometimes, so people are very afraid of them, and they're here and no one knows why they're here. When they're asked, the aliens just say, for the lesson, and I never found out what the lesson is. I guess I just got to the point where I didn't care. There were characters that I just didn't feel connected to. I wasn't overly curious about what the lesson was. I don't know. I didn't really like the book. So that is, I guess, the review for that one. I still have some more stats here though. So for the books that I did finish this month, the years they were published in, the oldest one was published in 1973. I had one from 1985, one from 1990, a book that was published in 2018, 2 from 2019. I'm sorry, my dog's right here because he can't be on the bed when I'm filming because he loves to lick my face constantly, and I just can't do that when I'm filming, you know what I mean? And then also 4 that were new releases, so they're in 2020, or they were published in 2020. 2020! That's what I'm trying to say, holy crap. And then as far as star ratings go, out of the books that I finished, 1 was 2.5, there were 2 that were 3-star books, 4 that were 4-star books, and 3 that were 5-star books. So my average was 3.9 stars, which is not very bad at all. I had 6 novels, 2 novellas, a manga book, and a collection of short stories. There were 9 physical books and 1 ebook. 9 of them were adult books and 1 was young adult. And I also read one of my 5-star predictions, and I will tell you how I liked it in a second. So, first book I want to talk about, so I don't forget it because it was on my Kindle. I ended up reading Hell on Mars by J.C. Foster and Justin Woodward. This was a science fiction kind of horror book that was a novella that I found on Kindle Unlimited. I've been wanting to read, as you might know if you've watched my channel, more horror set in space, and this one, I don't know, I didn't like it a whole ton, and not that there was like anything inherently wrong with it. Like the writing style was alright. I felt like the two authors were able to write together very well, but I didn't feel like there was much depth. There wasn't a very strong backstory. It takes place in kind of an alternate history kind of a thing where during, I think it was like Nixon's administration, they started like exploring space more heavily. I'm not even sure if it tells you like what year this book takes place in, but wherever we are now on the timeline of the planet Earth, they are stations set up in space, and the characters we're following are sent to like search and see if there's anybody alive on this station on Mars, and they go there because they think, I mean, there's just like no signs of life. So they go there, and there is this weird like portal that they've opened, and these alien like creatures have gotten out and killed a bunch of people, and some of the crew from the Mars station are still alive, so like you kind of get something going on with there. But like altogether I felt like there was just too many characters. There were only like 3 people who like their names stuck well enough in my head that I could like remember who they were. There was so fucking many people, so many names. It was only like, I don't know, 160 pages, but there was got to be like 10 or 15 names that kept popping up, and I was like, who is this guy? And I just didn't care enough to like go and look back, I guess. Like I said, I didn't feel like the story was very developed. Like the history of these people, you don't get a ton of it, like a little bit, but not a ton. And I mean, maybe that's something that is more developed as the series goes on, because it is a series of novellas. But I don't know if I am interested enough to, I don't know, continue on with it. But that's not to say that nobody would like it, because it was very fast-paced, very action-packed. There wasn't very many dull moments, and it really, I think like one of the things that I saw on Amazon said it was for like fans of Aliens and Doom, and Doom is a video game that always scared me too much to play pretty much, but I could see that. Like it was very action-packed, it was very like military focused, but I think I would add to that, like if you like Halo, that's probably what it reminded me of the most. So 2.5 stars. Give it a try if like you like sci-fi horror that's like very military based. And next, I would like to tell you about When Darkness Loves Us by Elizabeth Engstrom. This was reprinted by Valancourt Books, I think last year. And this is a collection with 2 novellas in it. There's like one that's fairly short, and that one is called When Darkness Loves Us. That's like the title story. I don't know. What am I trying to say? And then there's a second one called Beauty Is. So I don't know. Both of these are like, they could very easily be spoiled, I think. So very simply, When Darkness Loves Us is about a young woman named Sally Ann who gets like accidentally locked in like this weird like underground tunnel system that she used to play in as a kid, and she's stuck down there, and that's it. I'm not going to tell you more than that. And then the second one, and I liked that one a lot. It was very super weird, and like I questioned the motivations of everybody in this story. Then the second one, Beauty Is, really got me. And this one was a little more slow paced, and this is about a woman named Martha who was born with a deformity, and I don't know when this takes place exactly, but you can tell it's definitely like not 2020. I mean, this book was written in the 80s, so, and I think, I don't know, this could be set even in like the 70s probably. Sorry, my eyeball itches. So Martha has a physical disability that she's lived with, and that's kind of made her ostracized a little bit. And really, a lot of that comes from her father growing up. And she also eventually kind of has these developmental delays where she is a little bit slower. There is some use of the R word in this We know now that it's not good to use that, but that wasn't as frowned upon, and I think that the author isn't using that as language that she would use for Martha. It's more like the people in the town refer to her as this. So, I don't know. It is a little bit jarring, I guess, the first time you hear it, and there is quite a lot of use of that word. So I guess, I don't know, content warning for that, if that's something that really, really bothers you. But I think that this story was really good, and I think that's all I can tell you about it, really, without spoiling. So, this was good. This was one of my 5-star predictions, and I did give it 5 stars. So, I'm so glad that I picked this up. It was really weird. I mean, both those stories were just like, I've never read anything like that before. I also read Parasite Volume 1 by Hitoshi Iwaaki. This is a manga book, and this story is about this parasitic, I don't know what to call them, these parasites that float down from outer space and they start infecting people, and our main character is infected with one of these parasites, but it didn't successfully infect him because what they want to do is burrow into their brain, and then they're able to take control of the whole body of their host. But this parasite gets a little bit mixed up and ends up in Shinichi's arm, in his hand. So his hand, like, is the parasite, and it's able to transform and speak, and it's kind of wacky, but it's also kind of scary because these parasites eat humans, and while Shinichi's parasite doesn't have that need because it gets its nutrition from him still, his body and what he eats, the other parasites, you know, still want to eat humans. And since this parasite isn't quite like normal, the other parasites kind of see it as something that might be threatening. So there's some stuff that happens. I ended up giving this 4 stars. The story is so much fun, but it really, like, I guess I've seen the show a couple times, so it was just like kind of watching the show again. Like, nothing, there was no deviation in this first volume, at least, really. So I don't know, like, it was still good, but it was like, okay, yes, I know how this goes, yes, but it was still good. Okay, let's see, a couple of these books here I had reviews for, so I'm gonna give you shorter reviews, I guess. Next up is Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I thought it was just okay. This is the story of a pregnant woman named Natalie, and we follow her and her friend who is a pediatrician named Romola, and they are trying to get Natalie help because right now in this world there is this like rabies super virus that infects people at like a dramatically more quick time frame. What am I saying? Like, when you get bit, instead of it taking like days for the virus to travel through your blood-brain barrier and like make it so like there's no recovering from it, this happens in like hours now. So it's scary, and Natalie gets bit, and so her and Romola are basically trying to find help for her. And this is one of those books where these characters are on a journey, and I don't really like that. Like, I find it kind of boring and formulaic and a little bit predictable. I also wasn't very pleased with how it ended, but I do know a ton of people really loved this. If you want to listen to my more in-depth spoiler-free review, I will leave a card at the top for that, but I thought it was just okay. I also finally got to We Live Inside Your Eyes by Kealan Burke. This is a short story collection, and at the end it has the novella for something that he just recently did as a standalone called The House on Abigail Lane. And so I didn't read that because I just bought like the standalone copy of it that I'll read later. But this is like kind of one of those stories where it reminds me of like VHS, where it's like an anthology, but it has this like kind of a theme around it. Like, the beginning story tells you why these stories are here, kind of, you know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting, but all in all, like, I just don't really like short story collections a whole ton, and I thought maybe I would like this more because I really, really like Kealan Patrick Burke's work a lot. But I don't know. I just thought this was okay. I gave it 3 stars. There was nothing wrong with it. It just didn't really wow me. I think my favorite story, though, was... what was it? The Mannequin Challenge. I really liked that one. That one was strange. And, like, none of these were very bad, but I don't know. And it's very possible that my rating could have changed if I had read The House on Abigail Lane. I don't know. I'm not saying don't read this. I'm just saying I didn't like it very much. And I think if you like Kealan Patrick Burke, like, you will probably like this. So check that out if that interests you. I also finally got to The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. This is one that, like, I always look at it on my bookshelf and I'm like, I want to read this, and then I never read it. So here I am. I read it this month and I gave this 4 stars. I thought this was really solid. It's about this young girl named Rami, and she is the captain of a ship. She is like 15 or 16 years old, something like that. And she is only the captain of this ship because her parents have died, so she is the only living person on this ship. NASA decides to send out a ship to, like, intercept her, because when her ship was sent out, it was 19 years ago, before she was even born, when her parents were the captains of the ship, when they were running the ship. So, like, clearly the technology is a little bit outdated, so they've built a new ship. They're going to send it to intercept her, and then it will more quickly bring her to what they are calling Earth 2 for, you know, civilization to expand on another planet. And she gets in touch with the captain of that ship, and she thinks that he's really nice. But a lot of what's going on in Rami's world isn't quite what it seems. And this is kind of like a sci-fi thriller. I really liked it. Rami does feel a little bit young and naive, but that makes sense, being that she is 16 years old and she is alone on a fucking spaceship, and she has been for years, and doesn't get a lot of interaction with other humans, clearly. So, what else was I gonna say about this? I did think it was a little bit predictable. I think I kind of figured out some of the twists that this author offered, but I still really liked reading it and, like, being there for the ride, you know what I mean? So I still gave this 4 stars, and I think if you like young adult fiction, that you would probably really like this one. Okay, this one I'm only gonna do a short review on too, because I plan on doing a more in-depth review separately, because this is a new release. But I literally just finished this before I sat down to make this video, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This book was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know what to say about this. It's like a book about these 4 Native Americans who 10 years ago were on this hunting trip where they did something that has kind of bothered one of them for a long time. Something that maybe wasn't very respectful to the animals that they were hunting. And now it's 10 years later, and he thinks that the spirit of this elk that they killed has come back to haunt him. So a lot of this is like him not being sure if he's like, is this fucking real or am I fucking crazy? And it's really intense, and there are so many things that happen in this book where it's like, I did not see that coming, and it's like kind of like a punch to your stomach. And oh my gosh, I read some of this and I listened to some of it on audio. I really liked the narrator. Let me see what his name is. It's on Scribd right now, if you subscribe to Scribd. But the narrator did such a great job, and I'm trying to be better about talking about narrators, because that is an important thing. Like, that can make or break a audiobook. The narrator's name is Sean Taylor Corbett, and he did super well. Anyways, I was like listening to some of this before I went to bed last night, and this part happened, and like it was really intense and like awful, and then my sleep timer on my phone went off, and I was like, oh my god, what, like, how do I go on with my life? So this was great and gut-wrenching, and I recommend everybody read it. Man, then I read Nickel Boys, which was also a 5-star read for me. This is by Colson Whitehead, and this is the first time I've read Colson Whitehead, and now I really need to get to the rest of his work. He won a Pulitzer Prize for this, and this is actually based on a real story, and like when I was reading it, I was like, this seems like strangely familiar. And like I looked it up, I googled it, and I had listened to this review that a man who had gone to the real school that this was based off, I had listened to an audio, oh my god, I had listened to an interview he gave, and so like this shit, it was real and it was bad. And this is about a young man named Elwood who gets sent to a like reform school, and it's just a fucking awful place, and this whole story is so fucking sad, and it's like, I don't know, you know, it deals with a lot of issues that we still have in our society, which is terrible because this took place in the 50s, I believe. Anyways, like, it gives you so much to think about, and it's written so well, and it kind of like broke my heart, so read Nickel Boys. Okay, this one is also going to be short. This is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is a great book. I've talked about this so many times this month because it was in I did a review, which I will leave a card to, and then I did like my haul, I talked about it, and now I'm gonna talk about it in my wrap up. And this is about a young woman named Noemi who is kind of a socialite in the 1950s in Mexico, and she is sent to check up on her cousin who has recently been married to an English man, and like the guy's family is kind of fucking weird, and they live in a place that's really secluded, and her cousin is like ill, and it's just all very troubling, and Noemi gets to the bottom of it, I guess, is what I gotta say about this. And the writing was so beautiful. The author just really does great with the imagery in this book, and it was very creepy, and it was like a slow burn that wasn't too slow, and it was just very creepy and strange, and I gave this 4 stars. I think it was a really great book. Okay, and lastly, I read Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco. This was also a 4-star read, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it because I am going to talk about this in a trope video soon. It's not my next one, but it's like the one coming up after that. And actually, I was supposed to do one this month, and I totally like I ran out of time for it. So I'll do it at the beginning of August, I think, and then, you know, and then after that, I will be talking about haunted houses, which is why I read Burnt Offerings. I thought it was really good, and I watched the movie, and it had the mom from Devil's Rejects in it, and it was a pretty good movie too. So that's all I have for you. I read 10 books this month. Not bad. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. I really cannot recommend enough The Only Good Indians, though. Like, if that's the only book that you pick up next month in August, I think it'll be worth your time. So that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!